So here we go, number 84, the Darkness Light Godcast. Welcome back. If you're joining me again, Jim McFadyen here in the Vortex Centre for Wellbeing. Number 84 is going to be called the Fitbaw. Direct reflection and a conversation, I suppose, on the World Cup in America, Canada and Mexico. It's been really interesting to watch the last couple of weeks. Fascinating to watch Scotland, obviously. This is Thursday, the 25th, is this? So Scotland just got beat last night. Brazil get put them out 3-0. Again, I don't watch football. I don't watch football a lot. I really don't. Mainly because the quality of it's absolutely crap that I see. Never watching the television. If I'm ever at my dad's house, I will kind of tune in it now and again. If there's a game on, one of the bigger games, but the new way of playing that's been developed over the last, whatever it is, 10 years probably, this way that the possession, that they keep the ball and play for the back and back to the goalkeeper and all of that, I don't like it. It was amazing. I suppose the inception of it was it Barcelona, was that, who get the kind of credit for it? And, you know, with Messi and that entire team, Iniesta and Xavi, and you know, the way they kept the ball and the way they, I think at one point the keeper was they weren't allowed to kick the ball out, you know, in terms of bloating it up the pitch, which is a way that, you know, certainly that I learned football. You know, it was always, I went to see Celtic was my team growing up, Glasgow Celtic, and I remember when you were young, right up until I stopped supporting them, kind of late teens probably, and like every single time they get the ball, you expected some sort of an attack, whether it be, and normally then it was like either down the wings and crossing it in, or the keeper was able to, you know, pick it up as a back pass, so they would always pick it up and they would kick it out. So it meant the ball was, you know, it was for the keeper right to the centre half, so your centre forward trying to flick it on, or and, you know, a lot more exciting. The big kind of centre forwards tussling with centre halves, the skillful wingers on the side, you know, getting down past the defenders and crossing it in, and loads of headed goals. Very, very different game. Less technical, obviously. Back then, obviously, again, with anything, the evolution of, you know, sports information and knowledge and sports science, and, you know, how, like, even so many things in nutrition back in the day, and what we knew was what was good for the body, what wasn't. And then obviously the, you know, feeds into the whole, you know, what it's became in terms of the money that's involved in it. The business, and, you know, the value that certain players have, and back in the day it was obviously very, very different. There's so many, the game now that I see, and the game that I grew to love when I was young and played it for many years, what it's become, I find it very difficult to watch. I really do. I don't like it as a product. And the World Cup it was going to be an interesting one this time around, because back again, and this is, I'm sounding like an old man, but I'm giving you my take on things as always. But back in the day, you know, the last time Scotland played was it 98 they played, and you look at that team, it was quite a defensive minded team, you would say. A lot of good players in it. There wasn't many really great players in it, maybe one or two outstanding players. You would say a lot of, you know, really, really good quality. Certainly no world class players. You need to go further back. And I suppose my World Cup journey started 1978 was the first one that I remember watching, the Archie Gilmour, you know, so as a Scotsman watching that. And then the point I was making at the start is, like, Holland against Scotland in that game, for instance, there was two very distinct styles. The Dutch had probably just kind of, that was around about the time where, you know, their total football system with Johan Cruyff and all the great players that they had, that was just after that. So when was that? 74 Cruyff. So 78 Holland, outstanding team, and then, you know, the result that Scotland got against them, and should have qualified into the next round. And, you know, that was my first real World Cup memory. I had football memories before that, but that was my first, like, proper World Cup memory. And so you kind of, you go for there and you think, right, being Scotland's actually pretty good. We're maybe not going to win it. Not to say we won't one day. In fact, going to that, there's great documentaries back in the day that I probably watched. I don't remember watching them at the time, but the PR, the Scotland manager, Ali MacLeod, was like he was just a wee toonie, like a wee guy from Glasgow. That's what he looked like for me. I don't know where he came from, but he basically whether he said it or not, but the kind of it certainly, people, what they took from what he said or what he intended was that there's a possibility we're going to do really well. And in fact, the song that came out at the time, I was laughing earlier on thinking about it, will really shake them up when we win the World Cup. And that was a bit obviously tongue-in-cheek and a bit of a joke, but there was a real thing, like a possibility of like we were going to go and do something. And that expectation and that excitement and the wave that, that Scotland carried into that. They had an open-top bus in Hampden. They had... you think back and you see the videos of it, it's so antiquated in the way they're all dressed and, even the advertising, the ways they've made money back then. But they basically, I can't remember if they filled Hampden, but they had an open-top bus going around Hampden. And the country was really behind this team going and doing something, really well at the World Cup. Peru, I think they beat us in the first game, didn't they? And it didn't go too well. I can't remember the exact who the middle game was, but the final game against Holland, and watching Scotland and Archie Gilmour scoring that night, obviously you remember certain things from your childhood, and that was a really significant, like, moment. My mum was standing ironing in the corner, and the telly was on, and again, antiquated stories, but so to go for that, and then over the following years, 82 was fantastic in Spain, and that's when I was at 82. I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, so the Brazilian team, the first game Scotland played was against Brazil, so the goal that Davy Narey scored to begin with, and you think, and you look at that team, there was some real like proper quality in that team. Look at Dalglish and Souness, and like you're talking like on a different level, world class players, and really successful in their own right with their own teams, and that was a really again a brilliant team that never really done it, didn't do anything. And then you fast forward through the years, and the brand of Scottish football and what it was, very much we've always lacked in technical abilities, like the basic techniques. That's one of the biggest challenges that I see. I've always known that, even when I played the game. I was absolutely honoured to be at Motherwell for a couple of years under wee Tam McLeod and Tam Forsyth, and full time, training with the first team. We were 17, 18 at the time, so full time, and like training the I can't remember what it was called. It was under 18s to begin with. It was Motherwell Football Club. We were, and they were all full time. I was working with my father every afternoon, so I wasn't on their books. Probably saved them the 30 quid a week they were paying everybody at the time. They had no money, they were skint. So I was working in the afternoons and playing in the morning times, and training in the morning times and playing at the weekends. The intention being for me at the time to get fit, to get healthy. It was me just back for injury. I hadn't played for a couple of years, and they kind of really just to see how I went. It was they had nothing to lose, were getting me for nothing. I did really well actually. The first year back I scored over 80 goals. We won everything. We had a fantastic team, but at the time, and again I wasn't well. I was just coming back from being no well. Didn't know why I wasn't well at the time, but really problems with my lungs and my breathing and my immune system, and was never really right. Always suffering with viruses, always suffering with like every chest infection that was going. Anytime I was under any kind of stress leading up to a game or during the game, I would cave in. My body would cave in. Like full body muscle cramps. After 5 minutes of the game, I'd be like, I need to come off. I've got cramp for the waist down, and would be totally exhausted and being in severe pain. I'd go to run and my entire body would give me a cramp. No idea what that was, but obviously very detrimental to me and the team. I was the captain of the team at the time and rattling goals in for fun when I was healthy. But the minute there was stress involved, it was very, very challenging. And I remember I remember him grabbing me. We beat Celtic 3-1 or 4-1 at Hampden Park in the Scottish Cup final, and I scored 2 goals. I used to play between centre forward and midfield, and I played in centre midfield, and I made 2 goals that night, and I did all right. He never ever liked me. Tam Forsyth and Tom McLean really didn't like me. They tried to sign me before I was going to Man United for Motherwell when I was a boy. They used to put you on a thing called an S form, which means you were tied into them, like a schoolboy form, S forms. And I remember he asked me to sign with them one night, and I was playing with the local team up here, Kirkfield United, and they always had scouts at the games, and at the time I could have went to quite a few different teams. Nottingham Forest had just won the European Cup a couple of times. This was a few years after that, but Brian Clough was, again, I've got all these letters somewhere of the places that I was going to, and in the changing rooms in Hampden after we'd beat Celtic 4-1 and wee Tam come in. He was a horrible wee shite, a human being. Just a really toxic, poisonous, horrible human being. To me anyway, he was maybe different to other people. To me, I didn't like him and he did not like me. And he grabbed me in the changing rooms and his words were far more damaging than his physical. He was about 3'2", but he was very like, just horrible. The only reason you were on the pitch was because of your height, and I knew I didn't have a great game, but I had a good game. I made 2 goals and we beat Celtic at Hampden. We'd won the Scottish Cup, and it was just, I remember just him being horrible. And they were always trying to make me like run, which probably before I was vaccine damaged at 13, that would have been fine. I would have been great. It was the only thing that was missing from my game. But I know that I didn't have stamina, I just wasn't well. So my system would shut down, and so the lactate would build up, I'd cramp, and the fact when any time, any stress, I'd feel like virally, and my vision would go a lot. It was probably like kind of, what do you call them, like migraines, where my vision would go, and I need to go and lie in a room and put like a cover over my eye and lie for an hour to get my vision back. My vision would completely go, so there was loads of stuff going on. But I always remember they were always trying to, like, if the ball was over, I liked the ball into my feet. I was a footballer, so I had a skill set in terms of collecting the ball, passing the ball, controlling the ball, definitely scoring goals for anywhere, with mostly right-footed and my head, scored many goals in my head. But the ability to control the ball and have awareness on the pitch, and the way that they played was very much that you had 2 strikers, and wee Paul McGrillen, God rest his soul, wee Mowgli, that we played up front together, and Phil O'Donnell was there, but Phil was more on the left hand side, and it would go from the right back into midfield maybe, and one of us would go short, so either me or Paul would go short, and the ball would get bluttered over the back of us, and between the excuse me. Oh, choking, it's that bad. Excuse me. Between the kind of left or right back and the centre half, the left or right centre half, I'm still choking on it. And you would need to basically sprint into the corner, which for me in my condition of, health-wise at the time, I suppose, and fitness level, and even just like being a waste of fucking time, the whole spin off and into the corner, and it never worked for me, and wee Tam used to say, and he said it many times, we won another game at Fir Park, it was a League Cup final. I think I scored 4 in one game. We won like 5-0, I scored 4, or it was 6-0, I scored 4. And they were all good goals, couple of outside the box, scored a free kick. So it was one of the games under the floodlights on the big pitch at Fir Park. And after the game, he just tore me to ribbons. You're a luxury player, and I'm thinking, I just fucking scored 4 goals in a cup final. That's... it just didn't feel right, and there was always loads and loads. I've spoken about it on here before, and I've wrote about it a lot in my book. Just bits and pieces how they were, the way they treated me and the way they treated people. No nice at all. But the quality of the game back then, in terms of, and that team, there was in the first team, David Cooper came in for Rangers, there was loads of ex-Rangers, Billy Russell, Craig Patterson was there, Tom Boyd was there, Colin Neal for Ireland was there was a load of kind of like decent footballers, like good footballers. Bobby Russell was a great football player, fantastic football player, like great touch, 2 feet, and when Cooper came, he was obviously world class, he was something else. And, so the game itself and the teams that were on about, I suppose, at that time, I retired and chucked it just after that. When I left Motherwell, basically, I gave it up and then stopped watching football and get away from it because I was really sickened with it, and probably a lot to do with Tam McLeod and Tam Forsyth, how much they sickened me football. It really ended up hating it and everything about it because of what they'd done to me, or what I allowed them to do to me, which is madness looking back, but I did. And then get away from it for a long time. Grew up a crazy Celtic fan because of the house I was born into. My grandparents and my dad, and Roman Catholics, and it was like way back. Dalglish was my hero. I can remember when Kenny Dalglish went to Liverpool, just how I was devastated. And then I remember when Charlie Nicholas left to go to Arsenal. I actually met Charlie Nicholas down the Clyde side about 6 months ago. And I've not followed Fitbaw for ages, and obviously he's on the telly, and I said to him, you broke my fucking heart. Dead serious. He was walking past with his girl. So you broke my fucking heart when you went to Arsenal, and he did, what did he? I was in such a good mood. Me and the dog, and there's Charlie Nicholas, and he was just like a guy, and I don't get starstruck with anybody, and because I don't follow football, it was just like meeting a guy. You fucking broke my heart, you bastard. And he was like, Aye, there was a lot more to it. And he started trying to explain it a wee bit. It was brilliant. Fair play. He was something else. He was a great player. And these are the players that I grew up with. You know, like the great big European nights at Parkhead, and before there was seats, you know, so there was hundreds of thousands of people there, and Celtic were taking cash and they're declaring it, you know, so you would see like the maximum attendance on the paper, and you'd be standing in the old Celtic end of the jungle as a kid. And just you couldn't move, you know. Great atmospheres, great. The European nights, fantastic. That's what I grew up in. And then when I got to like 18, 19, 20, get sick into football, and just kind of get away from it, and didn't like it. Saw through the whole Celtic Rangers thing, you know. Really, you know, my awareness, I suppose. Didn't want to be like that, you know. Didn't want to be doing about that anymore. I was never bad with it, but it was there. It was, you know, part of my upbringing, part of my indoctrination and my programming. And I kind of naturally got away from it. And then over the last probably 30 years, you know, since I stopped playing football, like, don't really watch it, no real interest in it. And leading into this World Cup and watching, you know, you kind of get away from it. When you're in Scotland, the minute you turn on your phone, I don't watch the telly, don't do any of that kind of social stuff, but there's an interest, especially with the way they qualified, and seeing them gaining some momentum, and watching it, and then seeing the nation getting behind it and going, this is going to be amazing, you know, there's a real chance we're going to go and do something here. And the you know, the way they've allowed a lot more, is it 48 teams in now? There's a lot more teams in now. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Again, it's a money-making exercise, isn't it? It's, you know, what an opportunity for them to, so many different ways to influence and to, you know, take this sport, and the distraction that it's creating just now is really helping a lot of people. I would say, especially the fact it's in America. I see it all as a kind of, if I'm being completely honest, the whole thing from the opening ceremony that I saw. I didn't like a lot of the symbolism. As always, their opportunity to bring in the dark arts and the occult stuff and stick it down your throat, and people can't see it because they think they're ready to watch a Fitbaw. Right up to the first game, where I was like, what the fuck's happened with the pink boots? When did that become a thing? You know, when does everybody need to wear pink boots? And my son was like, what's your thoughts on that? And straight away, there's of course there's an agenda. When all the big companies like line up and say, right, we need to wear pink boots. And colours are neutral on that, but again, it's like, if you were to say pink, is pink a male or a female colour? Of course it's a female colour. That's the feminine colour. So what's that got to do with men's football? Why is that like pushed and shoved so hard for all the manufacturers? Or certainly most of them, and other stars who are completely fucking ignorant. They wear whatever. They would wear high heels if you give them enough money, Ronaldo. So it's like, they'll wear pink boots, no problem at all. This is what we're now pushing, and either cool or this or that. But it's like, really, it's like, am I the only person that can really see this? You know, so there's loads of things going on with it, the whole thing. It's any big sporting event like this. It's a big distraction. It's an event. The circus, you know, it's like the Circus Maximus back in the Roman times, the gladiators. Put somebody under a flag in particular. You get countries now against each other. Great, what an opportunity! What an opportune way to fight against each other without killing each other. And the good that the World Cup brings as well. You know, that the fans being together, most of them. England they've not started yet. Again, watching them, just the intention that they bring, it's just horrible. I laughed when I saw that the Scotland have left Boston, and then the England have turned up and the pubs are all shut. And again, you can only believe that I saw a wee clip. I'm not following it, trust me. But I thought, I get it, because as soon as England turn up, they're singing about blowing up fucking planes at the sky and the RAF, and you know, there's a nastiness to them. Even with each other. If England can't find somebody to fight, they will fight with each other. That's kind of where they're at. And obviously the opposite end of that is the Tartan Army and the Scotland fans. I will go into that in a wee second. That's been something that's been very interesting. I was wanting to talk a wee bit about the Scotland team and Scotland football, and why, you know, it's so fucking disappointing. It really is to watch them. I think that one of the fascinating things for me is to think that they thought they were going to do any different than they have before. With all the hype and, you know, the McTominay's goal and and again, I wasn't part of that. I caught up with it, and then when they're putting murals up on the buildings in Glasgow, you obviously catch your attention. But you're watching them and you're going, I just don't see it. I don't see it. Scottish footballers, in terms of the quality that they have, it's just not there. I would actually say the only like decent quality footballer in terms of, for that stage and at that level, is McTominay. He's the only person that I see when I look at him and I go, he's got 2 feet, which is so important. That's one of the things that we've forgotten. We've never really kind of pushed that, which is a wee bit unfortunate. I can remember when I was 18 or 19, just when I left Motherwell actually, and I went to played in a tournament in France with Heart and McFadyen. So we basically flew to somewhere in France, stayed in this dormitory. It was a nightmare from start to finish. It was just really fucking cheaply done and poorly put together. Anyway, we've been travelling for like a day and a half, planes, trains and automobiles. We get there the night before the match. We're in this dormitory sharing it with a Dutch football team who were wild. They had the fire extinguishers and hoses, and there was like a mesh curtain separating us and the 2 halves of a gym hall. It was just a plane crash. Then the next morning, we played the Peruvian national team. This would be under 19, I think. And we were in all sorts of nick, in terms of just been travelling, been in a bus for the last how many hours through France to find this place, up half the night fighting with these crazy Dutch lunatics. And then we walked onto this pitch at probably 10 o'clock the next morning against, I'll never forget it, every single one of them was about 5'5", and they all had Puma boots on. And I played from the start. I scored that game, but all I remember was doing that the whole game. All they did was zip the ball about either left or right foot, which is really the most significant thing that I've always known. You need to be able to, at that level, at any level, at the World Cup level, you must have some ability with both feet. That's just a starter for 10. And the Scottish, the Scottish mentality and the way we go about it, back to the way that we were like running, closing people down, like harrying them, big Tam Forsyth used to say we're going to hunt in packs like wolves and just chasing everything down. I've always known that the ball travels faster than the man. You can pass the ball a lot quicker. And watching Scotland over the years and seeing their desire. Billy Connolly did a joke going back probably 35, 40 years ago, and he was talking about it, how they come onto the park and they're just basically head down and sprinting, doing like zigzag sprints, and how the opposing teams, like the Brazilians, would come on and they look like fucking film stars. They're all bronzed and they've got the hair, and it's very, very different. And this feeds into like our personality as a country and as a people. The tenseness that you see when you look at the skill set that to me is very much lacking, in terms of the quality. Even like Andy Robertson's another one, John McGinn's another one. You look at when I'm playing in their teams, and quite funny, I remember way back one of the commentators basically said that the problem with Scotland is that there's too many Scots in it. There's too many. Ideally, the perfect football team would only have like 2 or 3 Scots people in it. And I think that was back at the time when the great Liverpool team had, Hansen, Souness and Dalglish. And when you look at Scotland and you see, the blueprint of what a Scottish player is, not always wee guy, but it can be, just that wee, determined, like buzzing about, shutting people down, making tackles. On the defence, like try to do the defence, and then the other side of that, like try to get past. And you see that with the lad that's playing up front in Scotland, try to like jinky, like trying to like get past the defender and make something happen. It's a really limited way of playing. The biggest thing for me is the basic lack of technique, which they can't be teaching it. I've been fascinated watching Japan's journey just now. Japan are on a 100-year programme to win the World Cup. When I heard that last week, I thought, that's brilliant. How Japanese, to take 100 years and to start from the beginning and say, okay, what do we need to do? And when you see I've been watching Japanese football, not watching Japanese football, I've been aware of how good Japanese football is for a long time now, for probably many World Cups going back. When they first came onto the scene, I remember was it the J-League? Gary Lineker maybe went there from Barcelona. It was maybe the first time it became a thing. So it's maybe only 30 years old, that league, or 40, maybe 30, 40 years old, that league, maybe around 40 years old. And for where they were and watching at the beginning, which was a bit of a joke, and then seeing how quickly, and again, I'm talking about basic techniques here, I'm talking about the ability to control the ball with 2 feet, to pass it with 2 feet, to receive it with 2 feet, to be able to manage it and like don't give it away. These are basic things that are so important that we're obviously not working on. When I see Scottish players, and I see them a lot up the park, it's funny to watch I'll often stop them at the dug and watch like 7-a-sides, guys that are, my age and older sometimes, and just for the crack, just for there was a guy in goals last week, and they were getting battered, and just this guy's humour and how he was like torturing his teammates, in terms of his language was horrendous, but it was so funny because everything he was saying was the truth. He was just calling them out about their laziness and the amount of times that you see up there, and I see it again with the Scotland team. I watched the first 10 minutes of the game last night. I thought the second goal was actually given as well. They got away with that one, and at that point I'd been on the go, fella, turned it off and went to my bed. And I was expecting to go up this morning for it to be 6-0. And I'm watching the first goal where the defender gets caught, and the second one where they disallowed. And basic skill set in terms of being able to receive the ball, having the awareness to know what's on about you, and then know which way you're going before the ball lands at your feet. And then the lack of skill set in terms of being able to control the ball. And the amount of times where I see it up there or on the telly where the second touch is a slide tackle or it's a shy, the ball comes to them, and it's like, when you look at the Japanese, you look at almost every other country, the one thing they do is they control the ball. They know how to manage the ball. And we don't have that. Scotland have never had that. And there have been players, you look at two-footed Scottish players, how many have there been, proper two-footed? Dalglish was, I don't even think he was complete two-footed. He was very, very good with his left. He was mostly right-footed. And the greats, people like Souness could obviously pass and play and shoot and score with 2 feet. But you look at the Scotland team, that team that I saw last night over the last couple of games, and you watch them in terms of, when it's coming to them, how comfortable do you feel? Especially this new way they're playing, but it's back to the keeper. I mean, it's terrifying. And you might get away with that if you're playing in these different leagues around the world. A lot of the Scotland team I don't know, if I'm honest with you, because I don't watch it, but a lot of them, they're not playing with Man United and Man City, and so they're not at that level. They're in different leagues around about the world. And you might get away with certain things at certain levels, but when you watch that Brazilian team last night where these, again, it's a different game. And I feel sorry for them. I do. I feel kind of sorry for the Scottish team in so many different ways. You think even comparing themselves to Brazil, you imagine 2 laddies growing up, one in Scotland, one in Clydebank, and who's got basically 5 months of the year where it's going to be dry and enough light to go out after school, and probably 70% of that's going to be teeming down with rain, and a lot of the times you won't have a lot of people to play with because people are now doing different things, and the complete polar opposite of that. You somebody growing up in Brazil that's on the beach, every single day, 18 hours a day. They don't leave the beach. And what they do when they're on the beach, they're playing football. They're controlling it. They're moving. They're running. They're in the sun. Diet's very different, obviously. Their level of health and vitality, the enjoyment they get for the game is one of the biggest things. When I saw, there's many things where I can tell when somebody's going to get beat, or they're maybe not in the best state to go and win. In terms of what it means to be an athlete, in terms of what's required to be in that flow state of an athlete, Hickson Gracie was the man that I really learned that from a long time ago, watching the documentary Choke, with the kind of freestyling, all in one night fighting tournament, no holds barred, no mitts, everything was allowed. It was barbaric. But watching Hickson, how he navigated his way through it, and the training that he did leading up to it, the yoga and the breath work, and being in that flow state and managing his heart rate, managing his breath, and managing his nervous system, so that when the fight started, he was ready to give his best shot. Hickson would be lying sleeping 5 minutes before he was ready to go out and fight some absolute gorilla that was 3 times the size of him, and so the awareness and the skill set and the tools and the techniques. When I watch Andy Robertson coming out, and he's so intense and he's so rigid, it's like you imagine a boxer being so stiff and try to throw punches and try to roll the punches or defend themselves, or nothing works. When you're that stiff and you're that tense and there's that amount of tension, which there is, and a lot of the Scottish players, of course there is. There's a lot of pressure. Again, a lot of that comes from the lack of ability. When you're already up against that, a team like Brazil, and that they're better than you, of course they're better than you, it's Brazil we're talking about, but the extra pressure and that's where, you talk about a lack of, skill set. And this is leading the Brazil game. And I didn't watch it all, but I've seen enough of it to, and he did a bit better in the second half. And this isn't a hatch job, this is just an observation. But the leadership, or lack thereof it, in terms of getting into something like that, when it's really, you're up against it, they're better than you, there's a really good chance they're going to win. So at that point, like Steve Clarke came out and John McGinn came out, and my heart just sank. I was like, fuck, they're beat already. They're literally beat already. Clarke's comment about, there's better teams than this have not qualified, I couldn't believe, because I'm thinking straight away, if I'm in that team and I'm thinking about Kenny Dalglish couldn't qualify, Graham Souness couldn't qualify, the amount of great players, like Scottish players over the years that didn't qualify for the next round of the World Cup. So there's better teams than us that haven't made it. So it was almost like, again, being Scottish and watching it, there's what he comes out and what he says and how he leads it, how he's the man, he's the manager. And I've always questioned, again, when I look at managers, I look at them and straight away I'm like, right, how is this guy going to motivate me? Is he going to inspire me? What's his management style? Because we don't have a lot going for us in terms of, not at that level, the qualification stuff. We get away with it to a certain level, but when it comes to the World Cup and even the teams we're playing against, they're just warming up, and the kind of further you go in the tournament, you start to meet the real football teams. It's a blessing in disguise they've been sending in, because that would be absolutely terrifying to watch what a good team would do to somebody like Scotland. Probably been done a wee bit of a favour to get out in time. But John McGinn came out and he was talking about, we're just a wee country and there's only 5 million of us. And I thought, that's just ignorance. That's his mammy or his granny that said that, or his dad. I remember my dad saying that, we're just a wee country, and it's like, okay, but there's like over 5 million of us, I think, last time I checked. We basically need about 100 football players. Or even 50 really good. And then out of them, we need like 26 that are excellent. And by excellent, I mean, like, can control it with both feet, can pass with both feet, can shoot with both feet, can play with their head up in terms of they're aware of what's going on in the park. They've got the physical capabilities. They've got the in terms of tackling and the skill set of the different tactics, and people that are really tuned in. We don't need a lot of them. We need 26 to go to the World Cup, and then 11 of them, if they were really, really good. So surely out of 5 million people, we can find one person for every position, and then probably one to back them up. That's not really. So the whole, again, the intention of, let's not expect too much. That to me is the fucking saddest thing about this. The saying that I did on one of the posts, I've done a couple of posts where I've been just doing my thing and speaking my truth. But Alba Gubraha, which means Scotland forever. And thinking about what it means to be Scottish, thinking about like our identity, watching us on the football park, how we've failed again, and then the lack of awareness as to what we're doing to ourselves. And because what they're going to do is, the thing for me is, they'll now leave here and they'll do the exact same thing again. This needs to go back to grassroots. This needs to take a leaf out the Japanese's book and basically say like how long is this going to take? Bringing in a new manager or a new coach and doing the same stuff, it's like insanity. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, you're never going to get any different results. And until we change to a different way of like teaching the children how to play football and what football is, it was always simple to me. Keep the ball, get it to your pals, keep the ball, and score more than another team, and have fun while you're doing it. It's way too serious, it's way too stiff. They are, lacking in so many different fronts, in terms of just basic technical ability. And then the awarenesses where your man, the manager, comes out and basically says that, it's like, well, there's better teams than us, and I'm just watching them going, oh my God, there is no way in this earth we're going to get through this. They can't. And then, fast forward to, the Morocco game where they were looking for a penalty. At the time I was talking about integrity. And I've watched John McGinn a few times. John McGinn's a really likeable wee guy. He is. He's. I don't rate him as a footballer at all. I thought when Roy Keane said at the beginning he was a pub player, I would agree with that. I think he's that's a really harsh, and that's very, very offensive. And I was disappointed in Keane actually for basically, he shouldn't have said it, but then when he said it, he should have backed it up. Now that's what I was disappointed in. Like stand your fucking ground. Like to say that it was tongue in cheek and to say that you didn't quite mean it, and it's like, I agree with him. I think he's a really, really good. But again, we celebrate mediocrity. We really do. We see it in so many different players in the Scottish team. I saw Billy Gilmour, again, a good player, and then he's out with his injury, throwing the first pitch at one of the baseball games, and again, it's just a fucking circus. What's that got to do with Scotland? And it feeds into the Tartan Army and the whole feel good factor, and just going about and people being pushed and doing things, and that's an entire different subject. I'm going to talk about it, the Tartan Army. But when I saw Billy Gilmour, I'm going, he's an okay football player. He's one of the best that we've got when I see him on the ball and how he does it. But again, that's our great hope is him, and then he gets injured. So tiny wee man. He's only 5 feet something. These are some of these guys you're playing against. Of course, it matters when you're playing against guys that are 6 feet plus and built the way that they are, and their genetics, and they're very, very different from what I see within the Scotland team. But the lack of leadership, awareness, the kind of way they conducted themselves. When I watched John McGinn going for that penalty against Morocco, I felt sick because he tried to win the penalty. So again, integrity is that where we're at? We need to try, and because that's cheating. And he does it a lot. He's really, really clever at it. When the ball comes, there's certain things that he does really well for the modern game in terms of protecting the ball. He will get his body in front of the ball, and he does. If you watch that penalty in Morocco, as the guy hits contact, he's gone with the guy. So he's obviously anticipating. He's getting really, really good at it over the years. And I'm just assuming that's part of his game that he does in the Premier League as well. But the way that he went down for it, and then to say it was, you could have got a penalty for that, but it's like, do you really want to win with like that by fucking cheating somebody? By coming in and knowing he's going to make contact, and then it's a dive basically. When you've went down, when somebody's not, definitely if he takes him out and injures him or hurts him, and the force from that tackle takes you down and prevents you from scoring. But again, it's just a sign of the times where any contact, and the fact McGinn's even looking for that penalty, like, fuck off, like, shame on you, man, what are you doing? That's not what it means to be Scottish. Again, we've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten our identity in many, many fronts. When you see the pink boots and you see how they're cutting about, and you see everything I've just mentioned, it's no wonder that we're, again, unlucky. I hate that. I hate when I saw him again this morning. I'm sorry for getting, oh man, I feel bad for having a go at this, but it's like, it's just the truth. And straight away it's like, oh, maybe if we're a wee bit lucky and we'll maybe get, and I'm like, fuck off, man, like, you don't deserve to be there. I saw an English journalist basically saying that having Scotland there is the argument against having a mere numbers. So instead of the numbers at 32 they've normally got, just the fact that Scotland are there is the argument against there being an inclusion of all these different teams. They don't deserve it. Probably shouldn't be there. And again, it's these things you can't hide. It's when you see the quality and you see the people that actually know what they're doing. Japan's a great team, and I started talking about Japan, and the phone's great because it then starts to find you stuff, and it took me on to it was like youth football. So basically, kids keeping the ball up in Japan, and then once I started looking at it, and you're watching their training, just like the normal boys clubs, and you watch how these kids are training with one foot. Came up with their left foot, came up with their right foot, blasting it up in the air, controlling their left foot, controlling their right foot, basic turns, managing the ball, receiving it with their head up, so that they know where they're going, like basic vision, watching their balance, how relaxed they are, how they almost like caress the ball when they're turning with it. There was no games, there was no shooting. It was basically like just basic skill set, like managing the football, controlling the football. When that comes into you, can you control it? And then seeing the things they're doing, keeping it up. That's how you master it at that age. That's when I mastered it. When I went to high school, the first year in high school, they were taking videos of me because of the things I could do with a football. That wasn't a thing back then. Nobody had to tell me to do it. I was at the back. Oh, God, sounds like fucking back in the day, but I was at the back every night with a football. There was no phones. There was 4 stations on the television. There was no internet. So it was a football and me every single day of my life. And you talk about 10,000 hours, so by the time I was like 9, 10, 11, I could literally take the ball on my right foot and I could flick it up and it would land in my head. I swear my kid's life, it would land in my head like a feather and not bounce. I could then keep it in my head for as long as I wanted. I could do thousands of keep you uppies, shoulders, heads. I mentioned David Cooper, actually won a fiver off David Cooper when he came to Motherwell for Ibrox. And he challenged all the boys to a keep you uppy contest, and I horsed him. I knew I would beat him. It was like Celtic v Rangers, it was brilliant. But I took a fiver off him, which I lost in a move way back. It took me long enough to get it off him as well. He was he was that forthcoming and paying me. But, you know, just that mastery, that belief in myself, that knowing that when Cooper challenged us that day, I was like, fucking come ahead, send your best. I know I'm going to beat you. I just knew I was going to beat him. And he did about 40 or 50, keeping up round about the first team dressing room. And I just got up in my head and probably did 80 without even thinking about it, because I'd done it that many times. You know, so when I watched the Japanese Waynes at that level, and straight away I'm thinking, how many people for the Scotland team could go into that training session and hold their own with these children in terms of their basic skill sets, like both feet, collecting with your left foot, shooting with your left foot, crossing with your left foot, you know, and then switching over. It doubles your ability straight away. There was one guy when I grew up, a guy called Jerry Seenan, who's actually run about Lanark. He does a lot of training I've seen and heard through different people, triathlon stuff, a lot of the guys I used to train with. And I remember Jerry was one of the best players I've ever seen, because he had 2 feet. I remember playing down in Hamilton one day, and he was wild when he was younger, Jerry. But I remember he scored like 2 free kicks for either side of the box with 2 different feet. He was like completely 2-footed. And I wasn't. It's the one thing if I had to do it again, and or if I had a son coming in or a daughter, obviously, then being 2-footed is the number one thing. The ability to control the ball both ways and make it equally natural to go both ways with it. It changes the whole game. I mean, you look at the Scotland team, and I see the under 8 or 9s in Japan and the skill set, and they're about 30 years into this 100-year plan. And they're ranked fairly high in the world, I do believe, and they're on this tear of beating people. And you watch them, what they're doing. Now, that doesn't just happen because they're Japanese or because they've taken up football. It happens because of a system. It happens through the awareness to see what it is you're doing, the intention to decide what it is you want to do, and then putting a plan together. And that's where, you know, Scotland, their team, their identity, their direction that they're heading, the leadership in terms of the manager coming out and just being like fucking doom and gloom and no motivation. In that situation, Morocco first and foremost, and then Brazil, it's fucking William Wallace you want in there. You know, and especially as limited as they are, this is a call to arms. We're going to fucking war to fight for, not just for yourselves and your families and your career, the people that have fucking sold their house and spent like everything they've got to come and support you. Like, you need to understand what this means to some of the people. Which is another subject, and I will go into that just now, the Tartan Army. Oh man, it's again, like, who are we? What does it mean to be Scottish? What is the Tartan Army? What does it stand for? Like, who are, you know, what is their ethos? What's their ethics? What's their philosophy? They represent Scotland, it would seem. They certainly represent a lot of people. A lot of people have the desire to be in the Tartan Army and go and do that, whatever they've been doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks. For me, watching them and seeing what they're all about, and I mentioned this again, I'm going over old ground, but again, for anybody that's tuning in for the first time, like, I too was once one of them, and in America, played over there, and probably I was 19, 20, went to Queen's Park from Hampden, and we played in the Los Angeles Highland Games, played against Rod Stewart's Fitbaw team. And I remember being that guy. I just discovered drink because I was starting to realise I wasn't going to be a Fitbaw player. And I'd had enough because I was always sick and injured, and get, you know, many times on that tour, that football tour, get absolutely wrecked with alcohol. And I remember being in the airport singing the Scottish songs and, you know, basically being a fucking clown, if I'm being honest, like a drunk clown. We all were. The songs and it's like the stag do mentality, isn't it? The good thing about it is there's no badness in it. In fact, there's a lot of goodness in it. Watching people doing it and watching what they get for it, and watching their attachment to it is really interesting. And it was actually one of the guys for the group. Again, you talk about controlling the narrative and who Scottish people are and what we believe ourselves to be and what we're perceived to be. it was actually John Maguire that said it's interesting that over the amount of times they've been to tournaments over the years that they always drink the city dry or the town dry or the country dry, wherever they are. That's their claim to fame. Again, they did it with Boston, like drinking the city dry. Ali MacLeod, I remember at the time, the Argentina manager, I'm pretty sure it was, basically said that, you know, like we should be like the Scots and just like drink whiskey for breakfast. Right out of the blue, like a real kind of like, what is so other people's perception of us in terms of, you know, what they're seeing on the telly. When I see the Tartan Army, I do, as I said in that poem, it's fat cunts with kilts and fitba taps, and good cunts. These are good human beings. A lot of great cunts, I would imagine, in there. There's not many bad cunts, but still that level of, you know, what is that? What are you actually doing? So if you look at the Tartan Army, it's 7 in the morning to 7 in the morning, getting on it and getting absolutely wrecked, and then dancing about, singing 3 or 4 songs with a cone in your head, and then really finding traffic cones to put on, you know, the different monuments you can find in the city, dancing with the locals. You know, that if I hear that, no Scotland, no party, one more time, you know, when you watch them singing it in restaurants and how much people are taking with it. Again, it's like, what is that? And that to me is a circus. There's no good or bad in that. It's like a distraction. These people and the ones that are like, all of them, they're so into it. And when you see how they behave, quite interesting to think that people possibly think that that's what Scottish people are like all the time. And let me tell you, it's not. If you go back to Big Stevie or Jerry, that's been away with the Tartan Army for the last 3 weeks, and you get into their workplace on a Tuesday morning, 2 days after they're back with their hangover and the DTs and, you know, the doom and the gloom and the depression and the fact that Scotland's just been pumped out. They're different human beings. No Scotland, no party will not be heard. And, you know, it's like watching it. It's fascinating. I find it fascinating. I don't like it. I don't like alcohol. I don't like what it does to people. I think a lot of the people, almost all of them, in terms of like being Scottish and what it means to be Scottish, like any chance to escape, it's amazing just now, and it's interesting to watch what the sunshine does to this country. We don't have a lot of sunshine. We actually don't get out that much, and that's a literal. That's not a joke. That's literal. That's not tongue in cheek. That's literal. We don't come the end of summertime into, you know, September, October, right through to sometimes well into summer. Where it's grey and it's wet and it's raining, and there's not a lot to do in that environment. Again, you link it to, and linking it back to speaking about the Brazilians that are growing up on the beach, that are growing up on the sunlight, like running in the sand and being in the sea, and when they're not playing football, they're either doing jiu-jitsu or they're surfing, or they're eating, you know, tropical fruits and the correct food, you know, for athletes and fuel, and you get the sun into that as well. It's very, very difficult to understand the impact, the negative impact that the climate has on this country. You know, and when these people within the Tartan Army, when they escape and they're on a tear, you know, then it's like they don't fuck about. You know, I can understand why they do it. It is escapism. I think for a lot of them, obviously, to be part of something is a huge part of that. Tribalism, you know, we're all standing under the tartan, we're all standing as an army. I would hate for them to fight for us if they had to. In terms of, you know, the level of health of, I would say, probably a high 90% of them isn't the best, especially after the last 2-3 weeks they've been on it. And again, when you see through, or you go beyond the noise, the initial message, the no Scotland, no party, the yes sir, I can fucking boogie, the, you know, oh, we're all mad and we're all jumping about, and you like, after a while that becomes boring. It's like, right, okay, so I get that. What's the content behind this? Or is that enough? You know, this is where I'm mental. This is where, for me, I need the content. I need like something more than that. I'm not interested in fucking no Scotland, no party and getting pushed and jumping about with a traffic economy. That's just not where I'm at, and I haven't been for a very long time. So there's again a snapshot. There's a consciousness. Obviously take there in terms of where we are at, when that's how people, grown men, grown women, that's where they choose to spend their hard-earned money or their hard-earned borrowed money, and they want to go and do that, to be around about that level of consciousness, you know, and do that, and that's how they spend their time. Now that's fine, isn't it? That's good for them, but to think that this is how we're seen, you know, to think, you know, that's, you know, what it means to be Scottish, it's sad to me. It is. I don't like that. I don't agree with it. I don't like how the world sees us as just being like fucking circus clowns that are pissed, and dancing about with cones on their head. And again, backing the team that they did, and being okay the fact that they've got pumped again, and they're unlucky and they should have got a penalty, and I'm like, fuck off. Like, when do we change it? When do we make like some sort of conscious, deliberate shift in a different direction to see if we can actually do something better than we've been doing for the last how many World Cups, for every single one of them since since 1982 probably was the last time there was any kind of ray of hope. 86 was okay, Mexico was okay, but it feeds into so many things, and again, being Scottish, and being very, very proud, and when I say Scotland forever, there's a real power in Scotland. There's a power in Scottish people. There's a real there's an honesty, and there's an integrity, and there's a spirit in them, in us, that's really powerful. And that's why when I see what it is being sold as, and what people have been told that it is, and programmed into believing that this is what it means to be Scottish, like get your kilt on, let's go and get pished for 2 weeks, and just act like fucking clowns, then there must be more to us than that. There must be more to like being Scottish than that, and that's a bit for me, where it's just a sign of the times, isn't it? It's a sign of the times, and it's where we're at. And there's very, very little that anybody can do about it, because it's a collective consciousness. And then you look at it and go, right, how are we doing? How is Scotland actually doing as a place to be, as a place to live? As how are we doing with the stuff, the addictions, and the drink, drugs, and the rock and roll, and what's the quality of life like, and what's the quality of people like? It's a very, very interesting time, and with sports, I remember Tony Robbins saying, you should play sports the way you play life, and I thought that this morning, how we've went about this, what we believe ourselves to be as Scottish, what it means to get into that tournament and just kind of do our best, but kind of see how it goes, and expect probably way grander results than whatever we're due, based on the evidence of like where we're at in terms of the quality. So there's a lot of work to be done. There really is. It's a time for change. I would love for Scottish people to, know the power that's inside of them. I'd love them to know the power that's in this country. I would love them to know a different way of living and being, that didn't involve, just the drop of a hat going and getting absolutely wrecked and escaping into a bottle of whatever it is. It's so short term, that view and that way of living and being. And there's a reason we're one of the sickest countries in the world. There's a reason that, in terms of the suicide rates and the addictions to substances, and it's we're not doing that good. Scotland is not doing that good just now, and it could be, and it should be. So things need to change for that to happen. And the process is all about remembering, isn't it? It's about remembering our true heritage. One of the young lads for the group, when I did the post about Scotland, like, who are we? Who is? What does it mean to be Scottish? And straight away, a young man with integrity and awareness, and he said our ancestors would be ashamed of us, because can you imagine our ancestors like going way back, that they've literally fought and died for this country, and then you see like where we're at just now, what it means to be Scottish. It's a sad day, and something I would like to see change. Absolutely. We can't stop. We need to keep going. It never ends. The journey continues. The journey back to the truth is what it's all about for me. The journey back to the light. The journey back to getting the world back to best that we can, the way that it's meant to be. The circus is the circus. The clowns and everything that's going on, and the distractions that we see every single day. The world is upside down and back to front. It doesn't work. People are sick. People are struggling. And I suppose this is all about waking people up. But more than that, it's about then giving, the experience, and then a different way of doing it, a different way of living and being, often on a different path. And for me, watching Scottish people, like really good, like fucking hard people, run about this work, and watching the differences and the change in them when they basically wake up, and they get new ways of being, new ways of living in this life, new ways of conducting themselves and navigating their way through the exact same set of circumstances as they always have been. And when you watch them and you listen to them and you hear them speak their truths with some of the challenges they've been through, there's nothing more powerful than a Scottish man and a woman standing up and saying, this is where I was, and this is maybe who I was, but this is what I've done, and this is who I became, and this is where I'm going. And that call to arms is something I'm interested in. The light that's coming through just now. Scottish people have got a huge part to play within this revolution, this spiritual revolution that's coming through. There is so much power within this country. There is so much goodness within this country. Of course there is. Why do you think the Crown and England and Britannia wanted it so badly? They want it for a reason. Ireland's the same, 100%, and Wales, I would suggest, also. So, to be Scottish is really important to me. It's very significant in terms of the role that it can play on a world level. And it's just a wee bit sad to see, where most of the attention is and where Scottish people are seen and how they portray themselves on a world level. And it's something that I do not stand beside, and it's something that I don't want to be part of, because I believe we're way more than that, and we are absolutely way greater than that. And to be Scottish should mean something. And when I see that at Disney, it stinks. So, number 84, the Fitbaw, the World Cup 2026. Scotland, the Tartan Army, pink Fitbaw boots, what a time to be alive. I said my very, very best to the way, to the truth and the light. That's what it's all about for me. The solutions that make things better, the divine path, knowing the truth, understanding the power that's inside you, that's inside me. Watching some of these scenes at the football, how people are different races and cultures, mixing with each other. That's how it should be. That's a great thing that's came out of this. It really is. We'll see how much longer it continues once England make their way into the tournament and how they get on with the American, the Polish. It's going to be brilliant. Happy days. I hope to go right to the final. And as we all know up here in Scotland, anyone but England. That's the prayer. Anyone but England. God bless. Take it easy. Peace out. Thanks for tuning in, and bye for now.